Good morning, North Jersey. It's Thursday, June 4th, and let's talk about the news. So, nationwide, we continue to see protests demanding for justice for 46-year-old George Floyd, who was killed at the hands of Minneapolis police officers. And just yesterday, the Minnesota Attorney General announced all four officers in the killing of George will face charges. Now, as tens of thousands continue to march, demanding an end to police brutality and reforms in their own communities, new leaders have emerged spearheading their own rallies and protests. Now, yesterday, over 1,200 Morris County residents marched in Parsippany, and in Clifton, hundreds gathered outside of City Hall to share their demands for justice. Now, both of which were led in peace. So with us today are the leaders of those marches from Tuesday, Mitch Petitfrere and Justin Rivera. Good morning, guys. How are you doing?
Good morning. How are you?
Good, awesome. All right, guys. So let's start this conversation. Let's start talking about each protest and recapping how it went. Mitch, I was at Parsippany on Tuesday. The Parsippany police chief told me that in the 28 years that he was there, this was the first time he'd ever seen anything like this. Now, let's start by telling us, how it went in Parsippany.
So it was a beautiful experience. We had over 1,200 people show up, which is way more than we were expecting. On our Facebook event page, we had a little over 300 click yes saying they were going to show up. So to see well over 1,000 people be there was a very overwhelming experience. And it was more than just the people that joined us in the march. There were community members and families on the sidelines in their front yards, wishing us well with their own signs and passing out water in solidarity. And I think the march was proof that people in Parsippany, they're willing to speak out against injustice. They're willing to listen, they're willing to learn, and they're willing to be proactive to protect Black lives, which is why we're doing all of this.
And it really was a striking image to see thousands marching in the suburbs of Parsippany. Now, let's head over to Clifton. Justin, we had some live stream footage from Clifton. The scenes were impressive. The crowd was energized. It was huge. Tell us, how did it go?
Like I said, I was overwhelmed with emotion by the turnout of how beautiful the protest was in Clifton. Like I said, this town is not very always accepting of everyone. So to see everybody come together, standing up at that podium and looking out and seeing people of every age, every racial background, every sexual preference, just come together and stand together for something that's so important and has not received the acknowledgement that it deserves. I could not have imagined that the turnout was going to be that successful. But everyone came together, everyone was peaceful, and I think we managed to get our points across peacefully. I wasn't planning on marching at first. I told them that we couldn't march because we didn't have the proper permits, but they took off marching, and Clifton PD was very, very accepting of it and just did their part in making sure that, traffic was stopped. And like Mitch said, people were pulled over on the side handing out water, handing out snacks, just showing their support and showing that they do stand in solidarity with us. So like I said, I was overwhelmed with emotions because it truly was a beautiful experience.
Now, let's back up a bit. So let's talk really about the planning and what goes into it, So Justin, like you said, you planned something and you didn't expect this turnout, and it was bigger than what you ever imagined. And Mitch, I know that you, Jabari, and Maurice had never done something like this before either, just like Justin. So Mitch, start off by telling us what it was like to plan something like this for the first time.
So everything happened so fast. We organized everything within the span of about 30 hours. And one of my co-organizers, Maurice Mathias, he called me late Sunday afternoon asking me if we could set something up in Parsippany. And I said, I don't know how to do this, but we can try. So the first thing I did was call our other co-organizer, Jabari Jackson. And Jabari is very well known in our community. He's very well known for his volunteerism. And he actually has his own nonprofit called Respect My Life. So I called him, and he decided to call the power brokers in Parsippany to see how we could figure out how to make this march happen logistically. Maurice went ahead and called more of his family and friends to try and recruit people to join us. And I went ahead and created a Facebook group. And because of that Facebook group, I was connected with the Black Lives Matter chapter of Morristown and another nonprofit called Wind of the Spirit. And those two organizations became incredible allies for us. Because me, Jabari, and Maurice had never organized before, the fact that we had this support from seasoned community organizers ensured that everything went smoothly. So the day of the march, it was peaceful. it was impactful, and everything was very well organized. And that would not have happened if we didn't have community support from those organizers I mentioned before. And I think the fact that everything came together so fast is a testament to the power of community, and the fact that if people from all different parts of New Jersey, so to speak, come together, incredible things can happen no matter how difficult they may seem from the forefront.
Now, Justin, you have a very similar story to Mitch in Parsippany as well. What was that like to plan for the first time as well?
So like Mitch said, it came about so fast. We were out there one day, just a few of us, and someone named Kaylee had actually come up with the idea. She said, we should do a march. She's still in high school, and she was responsible for, getting a lot of the younger high school crowd out there. But, we had put out a flyer. I couldn't have imagined that it was going to garner the feedback that it did. But in a matter of 2 days, I had Clifton Police Department calling me. I had, Passaic Police Department calling me. I had the city manager calling me. It was a lot more than I thought I was signing up for. I will just say that, planning a event like this is no walk in the park. But, I definitely, if you're going to do it, make sure you have a strong support team behind you. I had a lot of fellow organizers that were helping me just reach out to the right avenues and making sure that we were staying organized, making sure that we were staying on schedule. But yeah, for the most part, it was very peaceful, and we were able to get our points across in a peaceful manner.
Very cool. Now, let's talk about the other big thing that's happening other than these movements and these protests and these demands for justice. Now, coronavirus is still, a thing. So yesterday, Governor Phil Murphy said that those at the George Floyd rallies and marches should get tested for coronavirus. Now, did either of you hear concerns or hear of any others who were worried? Mitch, you want to start off?
Yeah, in the build-up to planning the march, Wind of the Spirit, one of the nonprofits helping us, they ensured that we did our best to follow coronavirus protocol. So when we were lining up all of our marchers, there were actually markers on the ground to separate each line 6 feet apart. So we did our best to follow the guidelines. And I know in the build-up to everything, some people were a bit worried about whether or not we could follow social distancing during a march with so many people. And while everything wasn't perfect, we did our best. And at the end of the day, we got a lot of comments on Facebook saying, I was surprised that they were able to at least follow some guidelines of social distancing. So like I said before, it wasn't perfect, but we did our best. And at the end of the day, we wanted to bring light to an issue that needs to be addressed ASAP. So I think as long as no outbreaks happen after this, it was well worth it.
And I did see that when I was there in Parsippany on Tuesday. I saw folks from Wind of the Spirit organizing everyone in lines, in single file lines, which is actually something I've never seen at a protest before. So that was really interesting. Now, Justin, any concerns on coronavirus? Anything that you've been hearing?
So when the whole idea of the rally came about, I had seen it in a couple Clifton groups, and I was just kind of, poking around to see what the general consensus was from the people in the town. And one of the major points of pushback was that, there's still a pandemic going on, and a lot of people were very wary of, having something like this take place in their town because it's still a pandemic at the end of the day. But I think that we did a good job in, making sure that people were staying protected. We had stations set up around almost 3 or 4 stations with masks, hand sanitizer, gloves. If you looked out into the crowd at any given moment, it looked like every single person had a mask on, even when we were marching. And then when we were marching, it was even better because nobody's pressed up against one another. So it was very easy to space yourselves out. I think we took the proper precautions. And afterwards, we have a Clifton Unity page where we kind of just want to put updates out for everybody. And we sent out the links to all of the local establishments that are offering free COVID testing. We think it's a priority to make sure that you should know your status and make sure that you are taking the proper precautions to make sure that you're not a carrier. And if you are, that you're quarantining yourself.
That's good to know. That's actually a very good point to note, to get tested at those centers and putting that information out for the community. Now, one last question, folks. As you move forward, in life and in these movements, it's the first time you ever did something like this. But what's next for the both of you? Mitch?
So the march was just the first step. So we listed 2 demands in the build-up to everything, and one was mandatory anti-racism curriculum at all Parsippany schools, and mandatory de-escalation training for all Parsippany law enforcement officers. And while we were organizing this event, we kept reiterating the fact that it's not enough for Parsippany to just not be racist. we all have to actively be anti-racist. And I think the way to do that is to continue to listen to our Black community, to learn, and to try and put things into place that will ensure that our young people in town grow up with anti-racist tactics in hand to ensure that this fight continues well into the future, so we can continue on that pace toward justice.
And you, Justin, what's next moving forward?
The next step for me is to continue to spread awareness and do everything I can to, put into everybody's minds what it is we're doing here. Like I said before, it all started with Joe. Like, it was one spark that started a fire inside of me and my friend Gabby that caused us to want to go out and put this whole thing together and bring everybody out together. So if one person can change the mind of one person, then you've done something to make a difference. I want to keep going out to all of my local rallies, keep instilling in everybody that even if you're not a protester and you can't go out, protesting isn't necessarily for everyone. Do what you can from home. Donate to the bail funds, fill out the petitions, just do what you can to spread awareness. Anything helps. And like I said, if you're changing one mind, you're doing something to make a difference. So that's what I plan on doing, just doing my part in spreading awareness for everybody.
Justin, Mitch, thank you so much for your insight on this. Thank you for taking us behind the scenes of what it is to really plan something like this. And I appreciate your insight.
Of course. Thank you for having us.
Alrighty, folks. Well, the news, it doesn't stop here. Now you can head over to northjersey.com to find more about what's happening with these George Floyd rallies, as well as what the state's saying about coronavirus. And if you have some news that you want to share with us, feel free to reach out on Instagram, on Twitter, or leave us a comment down below. Now, I'm Jessie Gomez, and thank you so much for watching.